Let's take a look at some message queuing with a demo using Azure Service Bus. I want you to really get the concept of message queues, as well as get an introduction to implementing them. I'm going to start by creating an Azure Service Bus, and then I'll create a queue within that. Then we'll create something to write messages into the queue and something to read them. When I was looking for a good scenario to demonstrate this, I looked over at a little quadcopter drone that I've been playing with. So I created my example based on that. Let's create a commander that pushes messages into the queue and then a drone that pulls them out. The messages could be commands to fly to a certain location. The cool thing about this demo is that you can imagine a whole fleet of drones all looking at the same queue for their instructions. The commander may not care which drone fulfills its orders, but as soon as one has, the message should die and not be picked up by any other drones. Remember that the things that are standing in line in this example, that are in the queue, are the commands. So let's go. We'll start by jumping out to Azure. Currently, I don't have any Service Bus namespaces created, and that's the first thing we need to do. So I'm going to hit Create a New Namespace. And let's go ahead and call this namespace the Drone Commander namespace. Now this needs to be globally unique because it's going to be prepended to servicebus.windows.net, and that needs to be available for you. I'm also going to go ahead and drop this into a region close to me. We're going to choose messaging as opposed to this being a notification hub, and the message tier can be either basic or standard, but I'll let you read the fine print on the differences as far as performance and price on basic and standard tiers. So let's just go ahead and hit create. And that doesn't take very long for that to get created, and when it is, you'll notice that the status will change. There we are. Now it's active. Let's go ahead and drop into the Drone Commander Service Bus namespace and go over to the queues. Now notice that besides queues, a Service Bus namespace can also contain topics and relays, but we'll save those for another Pluralsight course. Under queues, let's go ahead and create a new queue. Quick create. We'll call this queue commands, put it in the west, and it does belong to the Drone Commander namespace, so let's go ahead and create that. Let's click into that queue, and the next thing we need to do is we need to configure what are called some shared access policies. Shared access policies are shared permissions that are associated with a token that you can use in your application, and they allow you on the administration side here in the portal to configure which of these policies is allowed to do what in your application. So let's go to configure, and you can see that currently we have no shared access policies. We'll go ahead and create one for the drone, and we'll say that the drone is only able to listen. It cannot send commands, at least not in this scenario. And then there's the commander. Now the commander is able to maybe we could make it so that it was able to manage entirely, but let's just say for now that it's only able to send. Let's go ahead and give ourselves a management policy as well, just in case we want to manage this from any applications. Let me go ahead and hit save. All right, that's been created. Now just a note that I did kind of gloss over some of the more particular details of both a queue and of a Service Bus namespace. I just want you to get the general concept. You can dig into any of these individual parameters and figure out exactly what those do for you later on if you'd like. Okay, I've got myself a Service Bus namespace and I've got myself a queue. It's time to create a couple of node applications to connect to that. One to connect as the drone and one to connect as the commander. Let's go ahead and open up a console window. Put one over here on the left, which is going to be the commander, and we'll put another console window on the right, which is going to be the drone. So we'll go ahead and make a directory called Drone Commander. This will kind of contain everything. And then inside of Drone Commander, this one's going to be the drone, so we'll make a directory called drone. And then in our other window, we'll cd into Drone Commander, and we'll make a directory called Commander. All right, now let's start off in the commander. Remember that the commander is the one that sends, that issues the commands. We'll go ahead and create ourselves an app.js. We'll create a package JSON by doing an npm init, run through the defaults, which will be just fine. We now have an app.js and a package JSON file. Let's go ahead and open up Visual Studio Code now with that. There we are. Now we need to go ahead and install the Azure Node module because we're going to be connecting to the Azure Service Bus using both the Commander and the drone applications. So let's go ahead and drop that back down to the command line and do an npm install Azure. And this is going to be a permanent part of this, so we'll save that. And now we're ready to jump into our code. Let's open app.js. And let's go ahead and create what we're going to call an SVC, a service. And that is going to require the Azure module. And off of the Azure module, we're going to create a service bus service. Now that service bus service needs a connection string in order to be okay. And so we need to create that. That was a mistake. We need to create the connection string, and we get that connection string from back in the portal. Now remember, we're working on the Commander here, and after I've configured all my shared access policies, I can go back to my dashboard, click on connection information, and I get a connection string for each of my shared access policies. So for the Commander, I can go ahead and copy this entire connection string. Notice that contains the endpoint and the credentials and everything. So we'll go ahead and paste that into there. Now that's what's going to be used for creating our service bus. Now what we need to do is issue a few commands. Let's go ahead and do a for loop. Let's say that we want to do something, 50 times. And then in that loop, we want to do an svc.sendQMessage. And the queue that we're going to be using is let's go look at that. Under queues, it's the commands queue. So that's what we type right here, the commands queue. And then what we want to actually send is going to be an object. Now we could build that object inline right here, or we could go ahead and create it before our loop or within our loop or whatever. I'm going to go ahead and just do it this way and say that the body, now it needs to conform to this pattern. We need to have a body, and then we optionally can have one or more custom properties. In this case, I'm going to skip the custom properties and just put everything right into the body. That's one way that you can do it. You can just put the stringified version of a JSON object inside there, and then it'll be easy to parse it on the other side. This is going to be a really simple object. In this case, we're just going to be telling this drone exactly which latitude and longitude to go to. So let's say that the latitude is, and obviously this isn't realistic, but we'll just use a sample value, and the longitude is also 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the sendQMessage function is expecting one more parameter, and that is a function for handling errors. And we don't have to do anything with that right now, but we do at least have to specify the callback, which we've done. So there we go. That should do it for the Commander. Let's go ahead and jump over to our code where we're dealing with our drone. And in here, we currently don't have anything, so let's touch app.js, npm init, run through the defaults, and then let's do an npm install Azure save. Now, you'll notice that I'm using Node for both my Commander and my drone, and I'm not doing anything with devices at this point. One of the nice things about using Node is that it's easy to spin Node up locally on your host machine or in your device, and so you can get things working here on your host machine before you actually send it out to the device and add your Cylon or your Johnny 5 code and make it actually interact with the pins and the sensors and so on. I'm going to go ahead and start a session of Visual Studio Code from here. Now this is the drone, so we'll move this over to the right. Go ahead and edit our app.js. In this one, we're also going to be using the connection string. So I'll just grab that and the service, paste those over there, but the connection string is definitely going to be different. That's the connection string for connecting as the Commander. I actually want to jump back out, go to my connection information. Now I want to connect as the drone. So I'll grab the connection string for the drone. We'll paste that in there. And notice that for the connection string, the actual endpoint is identical. This is the Drone Commander Service Bus Windows Net. But then the shared access key name is drone. The shared access key is some difficult value, but that's unique for this specific connection, for this specific shared access policy. The nice thing about having various shared access policies is that later on you can determine to expire the keys for certain shared access policies and regenerate them, and essentially deprecate certain devices that are connecting to your service bus. Maybe they're troublesome devices and they need to be forced to come back in and get a new key. All right, next we're going to access this service, and just like we sent a message queue, we're going to say receive queue message. This is going to be accessing the same commands queue, and we're going to specify a function. In this case, this one function handles the error and the messages. And we can say if there was not an error, then simply console log the message body. Remember, the message body is what we specified in there. We could print out the entire message, but we're choosing to just print out the body here. Now this receive queue is going to run one time and one time only. We don't want to just check in and pull one message off the queue. We want to continuously pull those off the queue. So let's go ahead and create this as a function and as a repeating function. So we'll write we'll set timeout, calling ourselves, making this a recursive function, and specifying a value of 100 milliseconds as the call time. And I think that's it. So let's go ahead and make sure that all of my files are saved in both. And then in my listening application, my drone, I'm going to go ahead and node app.js, make sure that that spins up. I should just get blocked if I don't have any errors in my code so far. Looks all right. And now in my commanding application, remember this is going to send 50 commands. So let's go ahead and node app.js. Looks like the commands have been executed. Those lat and lons are being processed by the drone. The drone is picking them up, and we're assuming that it's flying through the air, obeying its commander, and going to the location that it's supposed to go to.